Most people can feel the difference between clarity and approval seeking, even if they never name it out loud. You hear it in the rushed explanation, the extra joke, the opinion offered too fast, like someone is trying to buy safety with words. That is why so much everyday speech feels thin. People talk to fill the gap, manage the room, protect their image. They explain before anyone asks. They defend themselves before anything has happened. They reach for relevance by having a take on everything. Epictetus would call much of that idle babbling. Not because speaking is the problem, but because speech without self-command leaks insecurity. And that leak is hard to hide. The people who earn trust move differently. They speak less, but their words carry more weight. They are not using language to chase approval. They are using it to show judgment, restraint, and moral purpose. Their voice comes from an inner citadel, a part of the mind that is not run by praise, or insult, panic, or noise. That shift matters more than charisma ever will. So here is the working rule. Before you speak, ask yourself one clean question. Am I adding clarity, or am I negotiating for approval? That difference between approval and clarity is where most communication advice falls apart. You can practice eye contact, lower your voice, fix your posture, and still sound unstable if your words are coming from inner static. That is the part people feel right away, even when they cannot explain it. Most advice stays on the surface. Be more confident. Be more charismatic. Be more interesting. But if your speech is still trying to control how you are received, it carries strain. You can hear it in the over-explaining. You can feel it in the rush to sound smart. It gets awkward fast. The Stoic move starts deeper. You do not train your voice first. You train your center. You become harder to shake. Then your speech changes on its own. It gets cleaner, slower, more precise. You stop arguing for your value in every exchange. You stop performing intelligence and start showing judgment. That is why likability is often a side effect of self-mastery, not performance. When people sense that you are not managing their opinion of you, they relax. And that sets up the first phrase, because real calm becomes visible the moment pressure enters the room. Phrase 1. Is this up to me? Control before commentary is what this sounds like under pressure. The room gets loud. People start narrating the disaster. And most of the talking is just panic trying to look useful. Picture an office on a bad afternoon. A deadline slips. Slack starts lighting up. One person says, leadership is going to lose it. Another wants a name to blame. You can feel the social pull to join the spiral. And that is the awkward part. Because calm can look strange for a second in a frantic room. Instead of feeding it, you pause and ask one clean question. Is this up to me? If yes, you handle your part. If no, you stop pretending anxiety is action. That question works because it sorts reality fast. It does not deny the problem. It reduces the problem into what can actually be governed. That is the Stoic split in plain language. Signal here, noise over there. People trust that instinct because it sounds like leadership, not theater. Most people burn energy on imagined consequences, other people's reactions, and commentary that changes nothing. A steadier speaker moves toward agency. A simple line helps. Let's separate what is in our control from what is not. Then move on the first list. Use one test after a stressful exchange. Did I name one controllable action within 60 seconds? The next pressure point is harder, because chaos is one thing, but judgment from another person hits deeper. Phrase 2, that seemed true to him. Detachment without distance is the move here. The point is not to become cold. It is to stay present without letting someone else's interpretation crawl into your nervous system and start driving. Picture a family dinner that gets tight for no good reason. A relative leans back and says, "You always act like you are better than everyone." Folks pause. Eyes shift. You can feel that little flash in the body. The urge to correct, explain, or fire back. That is the awkward edge, because defending yourself too fast usually proves the insult landed. So instead you say, "That seemed true to him." Then you slow the pace and add, "I care more about what is accurate than what is heated." That line works because it separates perception from fact. You are acknowledging that the other person has a view, but you are not surrendering your balance to it. Most people either counterattack or beg for a better reading. Both moves hand over power. This one does not. It shows you can name someone's opinion without merging with it. A useful version sounds like this. I can hear that is how it looked from your side. And I am open to facts. Not a fight over interpretations. Try one rule in your next disagreement. Do not let "that is not true" be your first sentence. Some opinions still deserve even less oxygen than that. Phrase 3. I have no opinion on this. Attention is sovereignty, and this is where people usually give it away. Not with some dramatic mistake, but with the small reflex to comment on everything so they do not disappear from the room. Picture the group chat going off again. Celebrity scandal. Office rumor. 10 people acting like unpaid analysts. Then someone tags you and asks what you think. You can feel the pressure in that little moment, because silence can seem awkward, almost like social risk. But instead of reaching for a fast take, you say, "Honestly, I have no opinion on this." Then you leave one clean line behind. Not everything deserves mental rent. That lands because selective silence has weight. In a culture built on instant commentary, refusing low-value bait signals discipline. The Stoic view is not that nothing matters. It is that attention is limited, and wasting it is a moral error. Every stray opinion costs something. Focus, calm, judgment. There is also a strange upside. When you stop performing opinions on demand, people often value your real opinions more. Scarcity adds gravity. A practical rule helps here. Do not comment on what you would not act on. Then track one ratio for a week. Opinions withheld versus opinions offered. Aim for 2 to 1. That restraint matters, but it still does not solve the moments when the threat is inside your own body. Phrase 4. The obstacle is the way. Space before speech turns into something stronger here. Once you can pause without reacting, you can do more than stay calm. Now you can take the thing that blocked you and use it as raw material. Picture the plan falling apart in real time. A client backs out. A launch misses. The mood in the room drops fast. Someone asks, "So what now?" That is the moment most people start narrating loss. They replay what should have happened, hunt for blame, and quietly slip into self-pity. You can feel how tempting that is, because disappointment always wants a speech. But a steadier mind changes the frame. The obstacle is the way. This is not the interruption. This is the material. That line works because it converts friction into direction. The Stoic question is never, why is this happening to me? It is, what does this require from me now? Patience, strategy, courage, restraint. The problem stops being an insult to your plan and becomes a training ground for your character. People trust that shift because it feels useful. It feels adult. A clean version sounds like this. The route changed, not the mission. Let us use the constraint. Then give yourself a simple 2-line review after any setback. What blocked me? What can this train? That is where pain becomes leverage. But even that is only half the work, because pressure reveals character most clearly when ownership enters the room. Phrase 5, I am responsible. Convert friction into force. Then prove it through ownership. A lot of people can sound resilient when talking about obstacles in the abstract. The real test comes when the problem has your fingerprints on it. Picture a project review after something went sideways. One person blames timing. Another blames unclear communication. Another blames the market. You can feel the room filling with explanations that sound reasonable but leave no one safer. That is the awkward part, because excuses often arrive dressed like analysis. Then one person says, I am responsible for my judgment, my preparation, and my response. Here is what I would change next time. In that moment, the room resets. That lands because disciplined ownership is rare. This is not self-blame theater, and it is not performative guilt. It is a way of showing that reality does not become optional just because it is uncomfortable. Charm can vanish. The second pressure hits. Responsibility does the opposite. It gets stronger under pressure. And people remember that. It also creates a kind of safety that most people underestimate. When someone knows you will examine your own part before pointing at theirs, their defenses drop. You become easier to trust, easier to work with, easier to stay close to. A good line here is simple. Before I explain the circumstances, I want to own my part. Then use one private score after conflict. Did I name my contribution before naming theirs? That matters, because even responsible people still fail. And the last phrase is what keeps failure from becoming identity. Phrase 6, I begin again. Ownership creates safety, but it also exposes something uncomfortable. Even people who take responsibility still fail. The question is, what happens in the minute after the failure? Because that is where identity either hardens or resets. Picture the small collapse that usually spirals. You lose your temper. Miss a week. Blow the interview. Say the wrong thing in a room that remembers. The old pattern shows up immediately. There I go again. This is just who I am. That line feels honest, but it is usually just shame pretending to be insight. A steadier move is shorter. I begin again. Right now. That phrase matters because most people are not destroyed by one mistake. They are destroyed by turning one mistake into a self-portrait. Then they behave in line with that portrait for days or months. The Stoic cuts that loop early. No drama, no self-hatred, no need to announce a grand comeback. Just a clean return to the next right action. You can hear the strength of it in ordinary repair. After a rough day, you snap at your partner. Later, you come back and say, "That was not aligned with who I want to be. I begin again, here." Clean, direct, a little awkward, maybe, but real. Use one rule after any lapse. Never let a mistake become a label. Then finish one sentence within 5 minutes. The next right action is, that is where this whole practice can still go wrong if you confuse discipline with coldness. Reset without shame is powerful, but it can be misunderstood fast. Strip these phrases away from the discipline underneath, and they start to sound stiff, detached, even a little inhuman. That reaction is fair, because borrowed restraint often has that awkward edge. The real distinction is simpler than it looks. The goal is not to become less human. It is to become less needy. Needy speech spills everywhere. It over-explains, overreacts, and keeps reaching for control because it is still bargaining for approval. Disciplined speech can stay warm, direct, even gentle, without leaking all over the room. A clean test helps here. After you speak, is there more clarity, more steadiness, more trust in the space around you? If yes, the practice is real. If not, you are probably copying the surface of self-control without the center behind it. A meeting goes sideways. People start explaining, defending, filling the air just to protect themselves. Then one person speaks once, slowly, and the room gets quieter. Not because they were louder, because nothing in their voice was scrambling for approval. That is the detail worth noticing. Real authority often sounds almost understated at first. A little awkward even. But people trust it because self-possession is easier to believe than performance. And you can feel the difference immediately. Self-possession gets real when you test it on purpose. Try 1 week. Day 1. Use, "Is this up to me?" in one stressful moment. Day 2. Replace one defensive reply with, "That seemed true to him." Day 3. Decline one low-value opinion. Day 4. Name the surge before it runs you. Keep going. Day 5. Turn one setback into material. Day 6. Own your part before naming anyone else's. Day 7. After one lapse, say, "I begin again." It may feel a little awkward at first, and that is useful data. Track 4 things in a simple note. Situation. Phrase used. Did my body calm down? Did the conversation improve? Trust starts arriving before you ask for it. And that is the real marker. Respect is not something you pull from people. It is what your character leaves behind after you speak. These 7 lines are not tricks. They are evidence. They show that your inner citadel is still standing when the room gets noisy, awkward, or tense. So try them in one real conversation this week. Speak a little less. Mean a little more. Let your steadiness do the convincing.